Hi, I'm Isaac, and this is my slideshow and workshop that I did Saturday, March 23rd at Mecca. And some people expressed interest in being a part of it or seeing what I did, though they couldn't make it. So I'm making a recording of this to share with other people. And I've got a lot to say and a lot I owe to other great cartoonists. So I'm going to definitely give credit. Okay, so what if you made your life into a comic strip? What if we made autobiographical comics? Some of you are already writing journals. What if you added drawings to them? What if you were to publish either online or in a book, in a zine perhaps, true comic stories about your own life? Here are some prompts to get you started writing and some other artists to look up and check out yourself, okay? I felt this was an inspirational phrase. It's all art, the way you laugh, your smile, your wardrobe, the way you decorate your home, the way you dance, your energy, your collections of books, the way you write, your playlists, your grocery lists, your friendships. It's all art. Your whole life is art. Do any of you add little drawings to your grocery lists? This is a piece I felt was appropriate and strong. Sometimes I like to drop random darkness and pain on people, says Life. He drops it right on this guy's lap while he was working. He even spills his coffee just to mess with them. But then the artist, he pokes at it and then he starts to sculpt it into something. And Life says, hey, stop making art out of that. Come give your old man a hug. Why is he hugging us so tightly? Probably just another tragedy in the world has him scared. From Lunar Baboon. Good work. Who am I? Well, I'm Isaac. I teach high school art at Network Charter School. I've been making comics and doing stand-up and writing songs, and I publish them at isaacparis.com since about 2001. Hard to say how long I've been doing stand-up comedy. I first was doing local plays, and then I got into slam poetry, and then I got into comedy, and I've always been drawing ever since I was a child. And here's a picture of me doing some stand-up comedy here in Eugene, Oregon. And this was from a tour I took to Corvallis recently. I think reading autobiocomics from other cultures is really valuable. It can be eye-opening. This is some pages from a Marjane Satrapi story. She grew up in Iran. And I recently read this. I loved it. Penelope Bagieu's Layers. And this will be our first prompt. Why don't you make a comic about a pet you've had? I'll read this page from Penelope. Why don't you have a cat? Yes, the great passion for felines that my sister and I share goes back a long, long way. Oh, look, here's a quiz for you. Which British Shorthair are you? Can we get a cat? Can we get a cat? They wrote a note saying, can we get a cat? And they put it in their parents' cigarette packet. They finally got the message. Girls, yeah, what? And then they see they got kittens. Let me share with you a story of one of my animals. Our little dog, Cece, jumped off the second floor porch to get to us. We were in a pool swimming, and someone opened the door, and Cece ran between his feet and jumped. She was small enough to fit through fence posts. She made a silent... She was silent immediately after she fell, and she made a terrible smacking sound as she hit the concrete. We instantly got out of the pool and, still wearing our swimsuits, gently picked her up and raced to the emergency vet. We ran some red lights to get there. She did survive, but it was very scary. So why don't you pause this here and make a comic about a story of a pet that you had. It could be the story of how you got the pet, a time when the pet got lost, a time when the pet did something new you'd never see them do before. And it doesn't have to be a cat or a dog. It could be any interaction with an animal at all. The artist Chris Ware makes such strong work, and he has a very meticulous and architectural style, but he also just writes brutal emotional storytelling. And sometimes reading work by really great artists makes you go, ugh, why should I even bother making any art at all when the best art's already been done? I can feel that way sometimes when I read Chris Ware. A girl's struggling to put on pants. I don't think he ever really loved me really that much. And with text different sizes and the lot of empty space, he's being really experimental and taking his time. This is going really slow. Oh, come on. How long has it been since he touched me in a way that didn't betray the obvious repulsion he feels anyway? Then again, maybe I am repulsive. At least in these jeans I am. Oh, the internal monologues that we have sometimes. I think Chris Ware is like brave enough to really write them honestly, and it's powerful. Ivan Brunetti. This is a page from Ivan Brunetti. He's a comic scholar, and this is a bit of comics vocabulary. Panels arranged on a page make a grid. The space between panels is called the gutter. Anything can happen from one panel to the next, but it's also okay if not too much happens. And something I like about this is he shows that the dialogue doesn't have to go along with the picture. It can, but have you ever seen a boring music video where everything that happens in the video is directly lifted from the lyrics? I prefer a little bit of confusion, a little bit of metaphor. So I think it's fun things can happen when the dialogue doesn't really go with the picture. And why don't you pause it here and draw yourself in a simplified style. It can be in this Ivan Brunetti style with a big head. And the circle for a head works from a straight on picture or from a to the right or left picture or looking down or up. And, you don't need to have accurate elbows. And put in some detail of clothes you're really wearing now to kind of be like a journal entry of like, this is what I am today. I think it was Ivan Brunetti who said he read a How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and it really had a lot of action and extreme close-ups and changes in perspective, and he felt like, okay, this is the way I don't want to make comics. And here he's saying it's okay if not much happens, and it's okay if every shot is actually a medium shot. That's fine. We use a lot of cinema terminology talking about comics, about close-ups, extreme close-ups, long shots, and etc. Let's look at Ernie Bushmiller. I think he was a big inspiration on Ivan Brunetti. He drew these really simple, fun comics. Here's a comic from Nancy. Where are you going? To the beach. In this weather? Yep. I want to reserve a good spot before the summer crowd gets here. And here's another one. Exhibit of modern paintings. $2 admission. Nancy spins around. And then we get to see this really fun, poorly, incorrect perspective drawing. And maybe this an example of something Ernie Bushmiller said in an interview was that he often starts in the end. Bushmiller would start working around 2 p.m. and sat at his drawing table well into the early hours of the next day. He began a strip with the last panel and worked backward toward the first panel. I try to find a sight gag and draw the last panel of the strip first, and then I work back from that to find how it came about. I've got a trade secret. Whenever I'm really stuck for a gag, I look through a Sears Roebuck catalog, and my eye hits upon some article, like an ironing board, and then my mind starts to play around with what could be done with an ironing board. How would a kid approach it? What kind of toy would an ironing board make? It could be a skateboard. It could be a surfboard. It could be the top of a fort if you drape a blanket on it. In media res is a phrase that means starting in the middle of something. And so I'd like you to pause and draw a comic that you start at the end of or start at the middle of. Here, I'm gonna share another Nancy. I'm gonna share another comic artist, Lynda Barry, and she's appeared on David Letterman. If that gives her any street cred, she's my favorite cartoonist, and I'm gonna take inspiration from her and read one of her comics. Bikes. This is a story about our bikes, like my first one, assembly not included, with training wheels from Sears. If you have training wheels, everyone will yell baby at you, so better go ahead and take them off and just make sure you're by some bushes when you start to wipe out. And she decorated this bike. There's a spot where you're not supposed to ride your friends. The next bike me and my brother had to share, a Sears Stingray Spider, all gold with butterfly handlebars, a leopard skin banana seat, and a giant sissy bar. We put Tony the Tiger handles on it and about 100 clothespins with playing cards on the wheels to make it sound like an actual dragster. You could tell it was the best bike in the world just by looking at it. Hey man, pop a wheelie. Now you can ride someone perfect. And the bike's the focus. It doesn't matter that she didn't draw any kids in these pictures. She didn't draw any background. That's okay. And she drew this one sparkling, shining. It's got emanating lines. Well, our thing to do was go up on this one hill after dark with our bikes and 2 pop cans, which you stepped on sideways really hard, so they molded to the back of your shoes. Then everybody gets in a line, and when the guy at the bottom yells, "No cars," you take off, dragging those cans on the street, and it makes terrific sparks flying all over. We called this the Torchlight Parade. Okay, no cars. Times, my can's coming off. Yell at him to hang on for a sec. Of course, sometimes you just don't listen to advice on good bike safety about don't ride your friends down that one perfect hill that goes to the A&P with no brakes. The only law we had about wiping out was after you wiped out, no matter how much it hurt, you had to yell rupture first, which would usually make you start laughing at the same time you were crying because you're bleeding, and man, look how wrecked up your bike is. Rupture, rupture, ow. So my next prompt is, tell us a story where you and your friends invented a game. And you could try writing this comic in media res, where you start at the end. You could start there. How did the game end? And then work your way back. Now, if I were to do this workshop again, there would be a chance for everyone who wants to share. We could take pictures of the comics you drew, and I could project them up on the wall, and everyone who wants to read theirs can be a little star for 4 minutes or so. Here's a comic I wrote this time, and the big difference of just watching my slideshow here instead of being there in person with others is you don't get to hear everybody's comics. I'm sorry. My brother and I named a special dangerous place in the woods near our house. Where you want to play today? Oh, I think you know. The Dragon Place was a large pile of branches, large enough to climb on, that had been there for years. Raspberry bushes grew in it and wild roses with thorns. We lost toys in it all the time. That was the price you paid playing in the Dragon Place. Can't reach. My favorite McDonald's Happy Meal toy lost forever. Also, there were bees. I think this comic turned out differently because I drew it backwards. And I didn't put the Dragon Place in the first panel. Anyway. I'll share another Lynda Barry comic. Cooking with Freddie. Say your sisters are hungry and you want to fix some dinner. Here's the thing. Fried bologna sandwich. Bread is the carbohydrate. Put it on some lettuce. Vegetable. The meat is the bologna. Drink it down with milk. Add it together. It equals 4 food groups. You will need a bread, frying pan, turner thing, stack of bologna, mayonnaise, a chair to stand on, stove. Whoops. Drag your chair to the stove and stick it on the frying pan. Light up the stove. Peel open the bologna package, peel off a bologna, drop it onto the frying pan. If your sister tells you it's a waste of time because she is not going to like it, she is wrong. I will not like it. You are wrong. Keep your eyes on the bologna and wait for the magic. You will see it. The bologna will go in a hump. It will pop up in slow motion, turn over, and it will magically hump again. Fried bologna is very good, a little burnt. Burnt on the edges is great. Then put mayonnaise on the bread, put the bologna and lettuce, and the smell will be alluring. She is floating on the odors. I was spazzing out when I said I did not want some. Come and get it. The teenager is so interested. What is really good is if you also have potato chips to put in the sandwich, and a banana to eat with it, and a giant milk. And what is really good is if you eat it on TV trays in front of your favorite show. Try it on your sisters or anyone who is hungry and sad. It is the best food for sad people. That's all, folks. Until next time, from your world-famous chef of cooking, I'm Freddie. Freddie, you are incredible, and this sandwich is also very incredible. This sandwich is wicked. And look how pleased Freddie is with himself. I admire so much how Lynda Barry writes as if she really is a child and not like she's an adult remembering what a child's life is like. And so there's some repetition sometimes to capture the way children speak, and awkward phrases like your world famous chef of cooking. And something that Tom Waits said is, when you're writing a song, put a little food in there so that if it was a world and you were trapped there, you'd have something to eat. And I really like that he drew the scent, and then the girl is floating in air and says she's floating on the odors. Another tip that a poet friend of mine said, Jorah LaFleur, said, if your poem is too short, you want to come up with more in there, and bring in all the senses. Say what you smelled, what you saw, what you felt, what you heard, what you tasted, to really bring someone there to the moment and time. So, write a 4-panel how-to comic. You should pause it here and write a comic kind of like Lynda Barry's about how to make a sandwich, but it was really about how to cheer people up or how to get people on your side, you know. So you could write a how to cook something meal, how to prepare something, or how to do something you're an expert on. And including mundane details can be funny. Like the way he said you open the bologna package and peel off a bologna. Every single little detail in there adds to it. So pause the slideshow here and make a comic. For this next one, we're going to focus on location. And I share another Lynda Barry comic where she explains like what it was like to be somewhere. And probably you write a little and then you go up and draw a little, and then maybe that triggers some memory to write. And then as you write, maybe it triggers something to draw. And divide your page in half like this and fill the bottom with text and the top with illustration. I'm not going to read all this, but I'll share one of mine. You could write about other places you spent time as a child that were different from your own house. There's a Tom the Dancing Bug comic where he writes about staying the night at a friend's house is like a different universe. It's the same as your house in some ways, but different. The dad roots for a different sports team, and the salad dressings have a different flavor. And I really liked that. So for my prompt for you, write about a place that you spent time other than your own house. It could be a relative's house or a family friend. Especially would be great if it's a place you stayed the night sometimes, because then you could think about what it was like, the different sounds you heard as you slept, because we get used to the sounds of our own house, and it can be hard to sleep somewhere different if you're used to sleeping with cars honking outside, and then you're suddenly in the country and there's frogs outside when you're trying to sleep. You can't sleep because all you hear is the frogs. What did you smell there? What did you hear? What did you eat? What did you touch? Here's a comic I shared this last Saturday. This was a house I lived in that had a downstairs with stairs going up, and there were 2 rooms upstairs. My brother lived in this room for a while. It was the storage room, and I left the door shut to save heat. This was my bedroom. Once my son Miro fell down these stairs, and he hurt his head, and I was going to take him to school, but my own mother said, no, you have to take him to the emergency room. You could get arrested for child endangerment if you don't. And so we did take him to the emergency room. That's the only time I ever went to the emergency room in Fairbanks. How did I end up here? Well, I told my friend Jill one day that my partner and I had broken up, and it was really hard to continue to live with her. So Jill said, well, you can come stay at my house. And then eventually Jill moved out, and she even gave me her car in exchange for 1 month rent. And this was a dry cabin in Alaska, and my rent was $550, but the landlord wanted a traveler's check every time, so I had to always pay a $2.50 fee to get a traveler's check. Sometimes I was so broke, and I was not sure how I'd pay for gas for my car and for heat. We had a TV here, and I labeled it Castle in the Sky, because that's something we watched there. We had pancakes in the kitchen. I had a drum set, and I had a 4-track tape recorder, so I could record myself playing guitar and then listen and play drums along with it. And one time my friend would leave me messages, and they'd write messages and notes and leave them on the door. And there were other houses in this cul-de-sac, but they were unfinished, so I had no neighbors really close by. My landlord had started these houses and didn't finish them. Why don't you pause it here and draw a picture and illustrate a place where you've lived, a place where you visited, and see if any memories come back. Okay, we're going to just do one more writing prompt. And I am inspired by comedians Maria Bamford and Gary Gulman. Gary Gulman especially says, write about vulnerability. Tell a joke about a time you were embarrassed or where you were the butt of the joke. And I agree with that so much. And Maria Bamford doesn't shy away from being vulnerable and telling us about the unwanted thoughts she has. And I just really appreciate both of these comedians. So if you feel like it, write a little comic. It could be a 3 or 4 panel comic about a time where you felt embarrassed, where you were the one who made the mistake. I'm not going to share a comic that I wrote for this one. To do that, you'll have to read one of my books or come see me perform live sometime. And to wrap this up, I want to thank the National Endowment for the Arts and Books with Pictures and the Sheldon McMurphy House and Mecca, where I had this. And this is Roz Chast, who wrote the book, Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant? And you could make a book about your own personal experiences, combining pictures and words. Her book also had photographs, and it was the true story of her parents getting old and being put into a old folks home. And it just seemed like a lot of short stories kind of put together into one book in chronological order. And I hope that these writing prompts I gave you could get you started, and you could potentially take some of these prompts into your work. Thank you for watching. Bye.